Kids Playground.
Hooray!
This is the Deron Harris Podcast. Here's your host, Deron Harris.
Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Deron Harris, and this is my podcast. Thank you very much for joining me this week. Listen, last week I did an episode about men's mental health, and June is Men's Mental Health Month. So all June long, I'm going to be doing episodes about men's mental health. I myself suffer from major depressive disorder and anxiety, adult ADHD, and a few other disorders. And it is important to me, it has become important to me, to alert men about the different struggles that we face daily without really even realizing it. And these things are out there. And all of these factors play into how we develop mentally or how we feel mentally. But a lot of times men, being men, the men that we are, we dismiss it. We put it off to the side. We say that there's nothing wrong. We lie. We fabricate stories so people don't really find out what's bothering us, because in our society, at least here in the United States, we have demonized people seeking help mentally. We what's the word I'm looking for? It's essentially, for lack of a better, we shit on these people. We make them feel like they're not strong people, or mental health is a weakness, or you suffering mentally means that you're not as strong of a man. And if you ask for help, that essentially you're a pussy, and real men don't need anybody to help. Well, that's a bunch of bullshit that people have been pumping into our society since before I was born. And there's this stigma that has formed, against people that suffer mentally. People, they make all kinds of insensitive jokes, and they have no idea what's bothering this person. And people crack jokes, and sometimes people crack enough jokes to make a motherfucker go home, get a gun, and shoot up the motherfucking job, or shoot up the motherfucking school, or shoot up the motherfucking house. And people are insensitive here. And we have, I don't really want to tie this into anything political, but we do have a commander-in-chief that really kind of empowers that empowers people talking down or shunning others down that they believe are weaker than they are. And it's just not right. It's not healthy for men. It's not healthy for men in this country or any other country. It's not healthy for straight men, gay men. It's just not healthy for men. Really, it's not healthy for anybody. But for men especially, especially you got men basically ridiculing other men for having a misstep, or men like to believe, especially a lot of these chest out fucking alpha male motherfuckers, they like to believe that they're perfect. They like to believe that nothing hurts them, that they can tough through anything, that if you can't, then you're weak. And that's a bunch of bullshit, because everybody goes through it. Everybody goes through times in their lives where they are not 100% mentally. I don't care how mentally sound people say or think they are. You have psychiatrists out there helping people that need psychiatrists. And that's the truth. Because everyone, I don't care who you are, I don't care what society or where you've grown up at, everyone has lived through some sort of trauma that affects them mentally. Mine started at a young age. I thought the world was perfect until I was 7. And at 7 years old, my whole world fell apart. My family, my parents got divorced. My whole world fell apart at that moment. And at that moment, there was all kinds of things just creeping up. I had no idea. I was 7. I had no idea the damage that was being done to me mentally. And later on in my life, my grandfather married a woman, my grandma Sue. I loved her to death, but she had a son. I don't even know this motherfucker's real name. That's so crazy. I don't even know his real name. His name was Peanut, though. We called him Peanut. And he was a cocksucker. He really was. He was a shit bag. He was a whole bag of shit. And he did, less than savory things, to my sister, to having me involved, the whole thing. And he was never punished for that. He was never confronted with that. And it was something that I lived with, since I was 7. 7 years old. And this man at the time had to be 18, 19, just taking advantage of children. We were children. He was steady taking advantage of us. And I was afraid to tell anybody. I was afraid to tell my grandfather. I was afraid to tell, my step-grandmother. I was afraid to tell my own parents. I was afraid. I was embarrassed. And not till later, when this came out, he was doing this to a bunch of people. And I don't know where he is now, and quite frankly, I don't care. But things like that, they weigh in on you. They weigh in on you when you don't really know that it does. Like I said, I was 7, 8, and I had no idea what kind of damage that this was doing in my life. My parents, when I was growing up, my parents were they struggled. My father and my mother at times, they were both abusive. My mother was more nurturing than my father, but make no mistake about it. My mother throws a, pretty solid left hook. But my father was the main he disciplined everybody in the house. And he was very stern because he grew up in a stern household. And he grew up, in a time, in the South where Jim Crow was rampant. And there was a lot of home instruction on how to behave in public. And a lot of that was physical. And a lot of that was passed down to his children, me, my sisters, my brothers. And we endured a lot. We went through a lot. And it really did kind of, it made it difficult to express how I was feeling to him or to my mother, because I felt my mother didn't care, because my mother was always gone. She was always ran off in some place. She'd drop us off at our grandmother's house and she'd run off with this one or that one, or, just be gone. And we didn't hold her responsible. We didn't know. But my grandmother, my mother's mother, was even more traumatizing. She was very abusive. There was times where, she made oatmeal for breakfast and she didn't put no butter, no sugar. She made it with water. It was nasty. It was just oats and water is really what it was. And she would make us sit at the table, and we could not leave the table until we finished all of our oatmeal. Well, I'm 7. It's disgusting. So I ended up sitting there with a mouth, cheeks like a squirrel stuffing nuts in his mouth, for lack of a better phrase, with a mouthful of oatmeal. Just sitting there, hours, tears in my eyes. I can't get up, can't go outside to play, can't do anything. Just sitting there with oatmeal in my mouth that I tried to eat, but it was pretty much inedible. But in that trauma, one thing that taught me is no matter how messy it is or how nasty it is, you got to eat it. Eat it. Because there's starving children there. You got to eat it. You got to finish your plate. You got to clean your plate. If you don't clean your plate, you don't get any dessert. You don't get to drink until you finish. There's all kinds of things that parents do to traumatize their children without really even realizing it. And it's time that people start realizing it. It's time that people start saying it. I had a conversation with my mother last year. It was a big kind of a blow up. My mother is, she has zero patience with anything, especially when you start backing her into a corner and things where she can't retaliate, she starts lashing out. So I'm talking to my mom, and I'm basically letting her know. I told her, we're having some sort of argument or something, and she's just yelling. I asked her why she was yelling. Why are you yelling? Why are you yelling at me? I'm 54 years old, and here you are yelling at me like I'm 7. Why are you yelling at me? Because you're frustrated. Because I'm saying things that you don't necessarily think that I should be saying to you, that you don't want to be held accountable for, that you don't want the blame to be placed on you for. But these things are squarely in your court and are solely, your responsibility. You did these things. Now, my mother has 5 kids. There's my sister Gail, my sister Twyla. There's me, my sister Rashawn, and my brother Eugene. Okay? And they're all older. They're all older people, and my mother travels a lot. My mother has been to see each, and I put this to her, and there was nothing that she could say to me to retaliate, or, I had forgiven her a long time ago, but my mother has been to see and visit and stay for a prolonged period of time with every single one of my siblings on multiple occasions, except for me. I'm 54 years old. Even times in my life where I had, something big, huge that was important to me, she didn't show up. She just wasn't there. I was on television for 4 years. I was on the Conan O'Brien show. I did sketches on the show for 4 years. I was on that show for 4 years. It was one of the most exciting times of my life. One of the greatest things I've ever accomplished. Especially being a comic. Being a comedian. It was one of the greatest things I've ever accomplished in my life. My mother was nowhere to be seen. My father and my mother are both Christians, and my father, he made it plainly clear. I don't go in establishments that serve alcohol. But my father, he put all that aside to come to Caroline's Comedy Club and watch me stand on stage. Never seen me before, but he made that. He made that sacrifice to see his son. My mother never made any kind of sacrifice like that. My mother, until this day, and I've, like I said, a long time ago, I forgave her for it. My mother constantly puts other things and other people in front of her own children. Other people are more important. The plight of other people are more important than the plight of her own children. And it's always been like that. And it's, I don't want to say that it's her fault. It's just the way that she's been conditioned throughout her life. And like I said, I've forgiven her. It's, you can't go back and change that, but you can't ride it out into the sunset, into the future, because you'll hate people. I love my mother. You know what I'm saying? But, did the things that she did it hurt? Absolutely. It was devastating to me to sit there and, times where I needed my mom, times where I really wanted my mom to be involved. And she just wasn't around, or she just wasn't interested, or she just had other things to do. It's just the way that it was. So, I learned that I did not need her validation anymore, even though I did, even though I craved it, I yearned for it. My mother's acceptance. I shunned my dad. But one thing, the difference between my mother and my father was, and I realized this as I got older, the difference between my mother and my father was this. If I have a problem, if I ever had a problem, it doesn't matter what it is. If I'm sitting down, if I'm crying, it doesn't matter if I want to swing at the world or whatever it is. My father drops everything. It doesn't matter what it is. I don't care how important it is to him what he's doing. If I say to my dad, even at 54, 55 years old, if I say to my dad, "Hey, Dad, I got a problem. I need to talk," He drops everything. Yeah, champ, what do you need? What's up, man? And he doesn't say a word. He doesn't cut me off. He listens to everything I say. Everything I say. And then he helps me formulate a solution to the problem that I may have. My mother is not that person. God bless her soul. But she's not that person. The only thing my mother is good for, let me not put it like that. The only thing my mother has been extremely helpful to me is just being able to nurture me. Sometimes when I'm down, my mother knows how to talk me down off the ledge. Sweet words. She's got a great sense of humor. When she smiles, it lights up, it lights up the entire world. My mother is a beautiful person, but she doesn't know how to handle crisis. She doesn't know how to address hardship. She's been through some hard things, but my mother runs. She runs away from things. She does not confront things, and things that she does not understand. She yells and raises her voice because she does not want to confront it, and she doesn't want it to confront her. And that's okay. I've learned that some people can't take that. Some people, it actually hurts people to turn in on themselves. I've learned that by watching my mother. It hurts them. It hurts everybody else around them because they don't know how to deal with it. They can't deal with it. They don't know how. So I'm going to take a quick, fast break. And when I come back, I'm going to get into the things that affect men's mental health the most and what we can do about them. I'm Deron Harris. I'll be right back.
The podcast playground. Hooray!
Now, back to the Deron Harris Podcast.
Hey, y'all, welcome back to the show. I'm talking about men's mental health this week, next week, and the week after. And I did last week as well because Men's Mental Health Month is the month of June, and it is extremely important that men start to internalize this, man. Your mental health is important, dude. I mean, for real, man, because, listen, we don't always check on our mental health. We don't check on our minds. We just don't. We don't check on our minds nearly as much as we check on our muscles. Nearly as much as we check on our bank accounts or our cars. We don't check on ourselves, man. But that's the thing. Men's mental health and mental health maintaining it's a thing. It's maintenance. It's a real thing. It's just like going to the gym. It's just like getting your car worked on. If your car starts fucking up, what do? You take it to the shop. But not us. When we start fucking up, we bury it. And we power through it without fixing the problem. And what ends up happening is the same thing that happens to your raggedy ass car when you don't take care of the fucking problems. Your oil starts leaking. Transmission fluid starts leaking. You start hearing sounds in the fucking engine. Next thing you know, your whole shit is broke down. And you could have stopped it, but you put it off. And that's what men do. Now, today, I'm going to walk through the top 10 mental health challenges that all men face, but I'm also going to do a deep dive into, what black men and men of color face, because it is a different. I mean, all men face pain, but black men and men of color, we definitely face a different kind of pain. And I'm going to speak plainly, man, because too many of us are walking around with these issues and we don't realize it. I'm going to try to break it down so that everybody, I'm not a real scientific motherfucker, but I want to break it down so everybody understands how important it is, so, they understand that their mental health is important. So if you've been wondering, what the hell is going on with me lately? Like I said, man, I tune in a little closer, turn it up a little bit louder. So these are the top 10 mental health disorders in men. And most motherfuckers I know suffer from some of this shit. So the first one is me, all day long, all day strong, which is MDD, or major depressive disorder. That's number one. And it doesn't always look like sadness. I'm not always sad. Sometimes it looks like I'm not interested in this. I'm checked the fuck out. Or like yesterday, I slept all fucking day. Sometimes I'm fucking pissed for nothing. And a lot of times, there's nothing in the world that has any meaning to me. Not even my kids. Nothing. Even though they do. They are the most important things to me. Sometimes, because of my condition, nothing has any meaning to me. Now, how do you know, though? How do you know that this is what you're suffering from? How do you know that you have major depressive disorder? Well, one of the ways you can find out is going to the fucking doctor. But if you don't go to the doctor, what are some of the symptoms that you could be experiencing? Well, one thing I noticed is I didn't have any fucking energy, man. I was always tired. I was always tired, man. Just go to work, come back home, laid the fuck out. Go to work, come back home, laid the fuck out. But sometimes I couldn't because, my mind was just racing. I couldn't stop it. Another symptom is losing interest in the things that you did for a long, like I said, I'm a comic. Comedy is my first love. But for a while, I had lost it, man. I had lost it. I didn't care. My whole thing was about making people laugh, getting people out of their depressive state. But I stopped caring about that. I didn't give a fuck to go do comedy. I didn't care that, I had worked so hard on all these jokes that I had written over the years. I didn't care. I just was willing to throw that out. But thank goodness, and thanks to therapy and some good friends to encourage me, I've found that spark again, that love for my craft, for the craft of comedy, writing and rehearsing jokes, so much so that now I'm trying to develop an app to help me write jokes more efficiently because I'm that much more committed to this. Now, I'm older than I was when I started, and I'm a lot older. I'm older than I was when I stopped. But that doesn't mean that I can't jump back on the horse. I can't continue, and I can't. It doesn't mean that I can't pursue the things that ultimately made me happy. Comedy made me happy, man. Another symptom is trouble sleeping. I take medication for insomnia. Now, I don't take it a lot because I don't like to wake up groggy, but I have insomnia. Sometimes I sit up and I use that opportunity to be creative, in which, helps me go to sleep or takes me out of that depressive state. I used to sit up, though. I used to sit up and worry, and cry and just all kinds of, I had no solutions. I would sit up and do these things, and I could not get out of my funk, but I started using that time to be creative. I'm a DJ also. I'd crank up, some music and spin music. I also make beats. I'd make a beat and at 2:30 in the morning, I'd write jokes. I'd start writing jokes again, which I've done. And now what has happened is, man, I'm fucking tired. I'm getting sleepy. I'm starting to go to bed with my wife. You know what I'm saying? She goes in there, I go in there. When she lays down and she wants to go to sleep, I lay down in there with her, and we talk until I'm tired and fall asleep. And that's the way that it should work. Another symptom is feelings of hopelessness. And I can't front. I still have a lot of those feelings, a lot of hopeless feelings, because especially with the way that the world in our country is looking right now, I don't have a lot of hope. But I can now recognize that. And if I can recognize that, I can take actions and steps to try and fix that. And another thing that is a symptom that people may not realize, they might just think it's just, par for the course, but physical aches and pains with no clear cause is a real and true symptom, because I have pain. The doctor can't find out what it is, but it's there. And they know my blood comes back perfect. I got a couple, a little bit around the love hand, but I'm 55, I'm still 170 pounds. I look like I should be, in no pain whatsoever, but I'm in a lot of pain, a lot. And that's part of this condition. But like I said, this condition can be managed. It can definitely be managed. And, I do my best to manage it. And some of the things to ask yourself, if you're feeling some kind of funky way, man, some of the things to ask yourself is, why do I feel like I'm moving through fucking, quicksand every day? when nothing's wrong? Why do I feel like that? When did I stop laughing for real? I asked myself that question when did I stop laughing? And I was isolating myself, and I had to ask myself, am I isolating because I want to, or am I isolating because I feel like I ain't worth shit? Or am I isolating because people are isolating me? It wasn't number 3. It was number 1. I'm isolating myself. And I had to realize that. I had to come up on that. So, what do you do? What if you feel like this? Well, the first thing you do, you have to acknowledge that your feelings are real. We as men, we like to make, that shit ain't real. That shit is bullshit. But you have to make sure that you acknowledge that your feelings are real. Feelings are real. They are not a weakness. And that's what we've been conditioned to thinking, that these feelings or our feelings are weakness. It's fucked up. Go see your doctor, man. Go see a licensed therapist and ask about your, ask about your mental health. Bring it up. I mean, while you're sitting there, hey, doc, is it possible I might be able to get like a mental health screening just to see if I'm good, because I've been feeling some type of way. And it's okay to tell your fucking doctor. You can journal also. You can journal and write down your symptoms. What the fuck did I feel this week? Write that shit down. That right there by itself can help you gain a little bit of clarity. That right there, just a simple act of writing some shit down and turning around and reading it and looking at it can help you gain some clarity. Then we have anxiety disorders. That's another thing that men suffer from. And it can feel like a smoke alarm that won't shut off. That's exactly how I fucking feel. Like shit is always on fucking fire. Always. Always. Except the fire has been out for hours. It's not even burning anymore. It's not even smoking anymore. It's been out. But I'm still in mode. Facts. The symptoms that I started experiencing was I was always worried. And if you're feeling like this, I'm going to, give you guys some symptoms. If you're feeling like this might be an anxiety disorder. Constantly worried or dread. I always feel like I'm falling. I'm about to fall out of my chair. That's how I always feel. Racing heartbeat or rapid breathing. That happens to me a lot. I overthink every goddamn thing. Still to this day, I'm trying to undo that shit, but it's hard to not when you're so used to doing that every day. I'm always tense. I feel on edge. Well, I mean, since not too much anymore, because therapy, like I said, therapy helps. Sitting down, talking to my wife helps. Writing things down and looking through it and reading through it helps. Getting back to the things that I love helps. And also trouble concentrating. Now, that's historically been a problem for me. Trouble concentrating. And sometimes I can. Sometimes I can laser focus in on some shit. But other times, I have trouble concentrating, and I'm feeling like like my brain power is not viable. So I have to ask myself questions, to kind of check, why does my chest feel tight? Even when I've never left the fucking house, when I feel so much anxiety, am I avoiding things just so I don't have to feel fucked up about it? Do I not go and do these things or, make a beat or go out and write some jokes and try them because I feel kind of fucked up and I don't want to feel that horrible feeling? Is that it? One thing I know I always did and I still do is I always constantly play out the worst possible scenario I can in my head. All the time. I do that shit all the fucking time. I play out the worst shit in my head. And sometimes, a lot of times, most times, this shit is not even what it is. Not even close. But the reason I do that is because I've suffered a lot of failure. I've suffered a lot of failure. And I isolate myself because of that. But one thing I have realized is that everybody suffers failure. Everybody. And I'm not special in that regard. But just like everybody else, I can get out of that. I can also succeed. And I can acknowledge the fact that I have succeeded. And if I can acknowledge that fact, I can pull myself out of that depressive state or that state of anxiety. Every time I make a beat that is just fucking fire, or every time, I write a joke that is hysterical, I feel that little bit of pushback. That pushback against those negative feelings. I feel that sense of empowerment. I feel that sense of, hey, man, you're still down in there. Because I am. Substance abuse disorders is another one. And let's be real, man. People drink a whole fucking lot. People smoke a bunch of fucking weed. And motherfuckers pop pills. They do all kind of heroin, all kinds of shit. They do all cocaine, all kinds of shit. Everything, man. All to try and silence the noise. It is a real thing. And people are they're ostracized for that. They're ostracized for trying to find relief. A lot of people are addicted to fentanyl, man. It's a shame. But a lot of these people are trying to find relief. A lot of these people are trying to find comfort. A lot of people are trying to find themselves because they're lost. And the way that we are treating them is not necessarily a good thing. So some of the signs of this is you need more substance to feel the same effect, to feel normal. You need to use these things to escape your reality. You don't use it for, recreation. You use it for heavy duty things, to escape your feelings, to fall asleep, et cetera, et cetera. People hide their use. Now, that's one thing about me. I smoke I smoke a whole bunch of weed. I have a medicinal card. But I don't hide my use. I don't hide the fact that I smoke weed for anxiety and for pain. But do I smoke a lot of weed? Absolutely. And another thing that is a sign of this kind of disorder is mood swings or aggression when you are sober. Now, I don't have that because I'm sober a lot. I'm sober a lot, but I do medicate myself when the need does arise. It's not something that I am ashamed of, not something that I try and hide. It's something that I actually advocate for. But, other substances like alcohol and, substances that don't really have any medicinal properties, those are the substances that are the most hurtful to our society, the most hurtful to men. And those are the substances that we need to take a look at, a deeper look at. So, some questions that you should ask yourself is, do I need to drink or smoke just to feel normal? Ask yourself that question. Also ask yourself this: am I using these things to avoid dealing with pain or grief or stress? Now, I smoke weed to deal with pain. I also use it to deal with stress. But, therapy helps me deal with grief. Going to therapy and sitting down and talking to my therapist on a weekly basis, that helps me deal with stress. And the last question you should ask yourself is, have my bad habits started to affect my relationships, my work, or my health? And as I sit here, I can say that no. The marijuana use for me does not affect my relationship, my job, or my health at this current state. So I'm not, again, like I said, I'm a huge advocate for, medicinal cannabis because it does have medicinal properties. So what do? Well, you don't have to hit rock bottom before you ask for help. Don't do that to yourself. Don't go down there. Consider using an outpatient program. There's sober coaches. You can have like strategies, help people have people help you develop strategies to help you reduce, your usage. There are sober black men's groups even. And there's so many things out there that will help you as far as this is concerned, with you staying sober. Okay? So the next thing that men suffer from is another thing that I suffer from as well, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, this does not go away, and as time passes, and it's so crazy, especially if you never felt safe enough to talk about the shit that you've been through. Now, I've been through some traumatic shit. I've seen a lot of traumatic shit. I've seen people killed. I've seen, shit crash. I was present. I was standing there. I was in Brooklyn looking at the World Trade Center when it fell to the ground. I was there. And it's a lot to deal with. And I do, man. And I think about so many of those things. I still think about 9/11 like it happened yesterday. It's so fucking vivid. It's so burned in my mind. And some of the signs of post-traumatic stress disorder is this: flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, there's emotional numbness or detachment, being jumpy or easily startled. I'm jumpy, man. My wife will tell you, every restaurant we go to, I look at motherfucking everything, everybody and every place. I am jumpy, and I'm when I get angry, I'm angry to a point sometimes where I feel like I'm almost out of control. I avoid people. I avoid places that remind me of the trauma that I sustained. I don't go to those places, but like since 9/11, and I lived in New York after it happened. I was in New York, and I moved back to New York, and then I moved away again. Since 9/11, I have not been to the site of the World Trade Center. Just haven't. It hurts. It's painful. It's traumatic. And I mean, it was crazy. I mean, as you're looking at that building, as I was looking at that building smoldering and on fire, I start seeing what looked like debris, falling out of the windows. Turns out it was people jumping because they would rather fall to their deaths than be burned to death. And to think about that and to internalize that does nothing but cause trauma, and it just makes your heart ache. But as I've come through this, I have learned that, these lived experiences, they contribute to my character, but B, they are something that, I have witnessed that has traumatized me, but I do realize that the trauma, it can last, but it doesn't have to affect me. It doesn't have to take my life over. I can pay homage to these people. I can go down to the World Trade Center and look around and be sad and feel for these people. But I can also smile and know that, my city, the greatest city in the world, we powered through that. You know what I'm saying? We got through it. And at that moment, it didn't matter who you were, Democrat or Republican, black, white, yellow, or whoever. At that one moment, every single New Yorker was united. And that makes me feel good. So let's get down to some questions to ask yourself, because these are the questions. I had to write them down. These are questions I asked myself. And the first one was, why do I feel like I'm constantly watching my back, even in safe places? Like I said, I go to restaurants and sit down and fucking eat. Typically, fucking sitting in the back of IHOP is cool. But I turn everything into a dire situation. For a long time, I was doing that. Okay, where's the emergency exit? Just in case a motherfucker wants to run in here and start shooting IHOP up. And I would think that every fucking time I went to IHOP or any restaurant. That's one of the things that is always on my mind, or was always on my mind in every restaurant that I ever go to, is somebody going to walk in here and shoot it up. Same thing grocery shopping. Same thing when I go into any place. And this still happens. But a lot of these places are safe places. They are historically safe. And because one bad incident has happened, now what my brain likes to do is it makes it all bad. And that's just not the case. And number 2 question is, do I emotionally shut down around my kids, my partner, and my friends? Now, sometimes I used to, but I've gotten to the point where I don't shut down anymore. I talk it out. I talk it out as per, my therapist, even if I got to talk it out with myself, even if I got to write it down and talk it out with myself. So what can you do? Well, you can find a trauma-informed therapist. You can find an EMDR, somatic therapy, and peer groups for men with PTSD, including veterans and survivors of violence. These different organizations definitely are 100% advocates for men's mental health, and they are here to help you 100% of the time. So that is a big that's a big help for us. I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to take a quick, fast break, and I'm going to come back and bang out the rest of them. So number 5 is bipolar disorder. Now, I feel like I've always had this. Bipolar disorder isn't just mood swings or just I'm grumpy today. It is extremes. It's either I'm invincible today or I'm motherfucking invisible today. And that's the fucking truth. That's bipolar disorder in a fucking nutshell. There's manic phases, which you have excessive energy. I talk fast. I have racing thoughts. I have impulsive decisions. I spend on bullshit. I engage in risky behavior. I feel sometimes high or unstoppable. So it's one way or the other. Either I feel like I can defeat the world, or I feel like I've been defeated by the world. And it's more common than you think. You go through a depressive phase, similar to like what I have with major depressive disorder. You feel fatigue, you feel isolation, you feel a lot of hopelessness. This is all part of, the fucking bipolar disorder that, people sometimes don't even realize that they suffer from. So there are some self-check questions that you can ask yourselves. Do I have moments where I feel like I can do anything and then crash for days? Yeah, I have that. Have people said I act different depending on the week? Motherfucking right. People say I act different from minute to minute in certain cases. It's fucking crazy. Do I make choices in the moment that I regret later? Now, I used to do that, but I stop now and I think because of something that my dad said a long time ago. And this is one thing that I've always used. 15 seconds. 15 seconds. Stop and think about what it is you're about to do for 15 seconds. It will change your life. And that right there is how I have lived a lot of my life and straightened up a lot of the poor decision making that I've had. So what can you do? Well, bipolar disorder requires like medical treatment. So it's nothing that you can really kind of do. There are mood stabilizers. There's mood stabilizers you can take. You can have monitoring. There's professional support you can go out and seek. But if bipolar disorder is left untreated, you can spiral out of control quick, fast, and in a hurry. But if you get to it and realize that it can be treated and people can live happy and balanced lives. And that's the absolute truth. So these things are not death sentences, and they're not, they're not, you're not crazy. There's not admissions of you being fucking crazy out here. It's just shit that happens. It's just shit that happens when people are traumatized in their life, and people go through it. So I'm gonna take another break. And when I come back, I'm gonna speed through the rest, and I'm gonna get through the rest of the podcast so that you guys can get to helping yourselves. All right. This is the Deron Harris Podcast. I will be right back.
The Podcast Playground. Hooray!
Now, back to the Deron Harris Podcast.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to the show. Talking about men's mental health today. I just did five of the things that men suffer from mentally, and I'm going to speed through the second 5. I'm just going to name them off. We also suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder. That's number 6. Number 7 is schizophrenia. And believe it or not, sometimes I feel this way. Sometimes I feel like I'm suffering, like I'm two different motherfuckers. Sometimes I really do. ADHD in adult men. Now, more of us suffer. I think that's probably one of the most common things that men suffer from is ADHD. Just the lack of ability to focus on things. And that's because we have so many things going on and so many things that is expected of us and so many demands that are placed on us on a day-to-day basis that we become frazzled. And it is sometimes it's crippling. I mean, for me, ADHD, I'm doing 10 things at once right now. I'm doing 10 things at once right now. And it's sometimes it's even hard to focus on doing my podcast because of the attention deficit. I got to write down most of my material. I have to write down most of the things that I talk to people about. Otherwise, I'll be off on a tangent talking about fucking Batman and fucking, how they changed fucking the Black Panther to a white guy, et cetera, et cetera. But it's something that I am committed to tackling and mastering and becoming more focused on things that I want to accomplish. Number 9 is suicidal ideation and self-harm. Now, I've had this myself where I've just pictured that world would be better off without me being here. It would just be better off without me saying how I feel, without anybody saying, do you need help? I could just go ahead and be on some gone. And nobody would fucking care. But that's not the case. That is not even remotely close. The one thing about suicide, in my opinion, is very selfish because we don't think about the people that we affect, the people that we touch, the people that love us, the people whose lives we enrich just for being us. But I'm going through something that nobody can understand. And nobody gets me. And, I'll just be better off than I'm not here. Now, I'm not trying to make people who have these thoughts feel, but I'm wanting, hopefully, getting you to understand that even though you may not value yourself, there are so many people out there, people that you don't even know, that value everything you do, everything you say. And that goes for everybody. If you don't think there's somebody who looks up to you, think again. And number 10 is body, I hope I'm saying this, dysmorphic disorder or muscle dysmorphia. And that's people who don't think, and I think sometimes my wife suffers from some of this because my wife is 100 pounds, 104 pounds, usually 103, 102, 103, 104 pounds. But we go to a grocery store, and there's a scale in the lobby in the grocery store, and she'll step on that scale in the lobby, and I just see the disdain every time. And I have to tell her, hey, babe, you need to stop that because you are actively putting yourself down. You are actively shaming your own presence for nothing, and you're absolutely beautiful. You turn heads. When you walk down the street, motherfuckers is like, oh, who is that? Because you turn heads. But the only person who seems that to be super unsatisfied with the way you look is you. And that's bad because you're sitting there, you're denying yourself a particular feeling because you don't believe that you deserve it because of the way that you look. I keep telling her, that's not the way. You're 100 pounds. You know what I'm saying? You're 100. Oh, but I want this and I want that and so forth. And I see this and I see that. And that's fine. And she does. She goes out and she works out every damn day. Every day. But sometimes I believe that she works out of fear. Out of fear that she will become the one thing that she hates. And that's just not a healthy way to think. I was always, I got some, I've always been, thin, but I've, as of lately, I have some love handles that I've never had before. And I look down at these love handles, no, you motherfuckers got to go. You don't pay rent, you got to fucking go. But I also have to understand that I'm 54 years old. I'm not as active as I used to be. My metabolism has slowed down. I could go out there and work out a little bit and probably get a little bit about my physique back. But as I look in the mirror, I love myself. I don't think that I look bad. Do I have 2 love handles? Yes. But do I look bad? Do I hate my body? Do I want to shame myself? No. Because I love myself. And anybody who suffers from this, they ought to feel the same way. You should love yourself. You have been through a lot of shit. Facts. So, before I close out, I want to talk directly to some men of color. And, black men and men of color. And we are less likely, and I just want you to know this, we are less likely to get diagnosed and more likely to be misdiagnosed with schizophrenia instead of depression. We are more likely to be criminalized for a mental health crisis, which means if we're having an issue like the dude was having on the subway train and got choked to death and then that guy got off, that guy had autism. He was mentally disabled. But the guy got off. And, I don't want to, this is another issue, which also contributes to men and men of color's mental health. But I'm not going to get too far into it. But, the guy who killed the guy and got off was a white man. And it just is another example how white men are given a slap on the wrist for taking black lives. And, I guess he felt empowered to do that. And I don't even think this man has ever apologized to the family of the man that he killed. Because he thinks that he was in the right. Because he was told that he was in the right. We have been taught that vulnerability is weakness in our culture. And that is wrong. So many niggas around here talking, nigga, that's weak, nigga. You soft. We get told that shit all the time for feeling like fucking shit that's genuinely traumatic shit. You know what I'm saying? But we're conditioned that crying is pussy. And that's wrong. Historical trauma and poverty, systemic racism, and police violence, all that shit weighs in on our psyches, more so than our white counterparts. And we suffer a lot more than they do. And we are less likely to go out and seek that help. Black men, men of color, we are not robots. And we are not superhuman. And we are not disposable. We have to stop thinking that we are. And if there's any group of people that should be healing or should be taking time to heal, it's us. It is 100% us. So one last thing I want to talk about before I get off is this stressful ass world we live in right now. And there's constant crisis. There's cycles of outrage. There's political fear-mongering, financial pressure. There's racial trauma. And not for nothing, news media, they thrive on that shit. They thrive on anxiety. They put that shit out there so that you can follow, so that these politicians can continue to fucking fear-monger you into doing something that's not right. They are, and the fucked up thing, and this is the fucked up part about it, is they have people, doctors and scientists, that sit down and they work on our mental stability. They work on what they can do to manipulate us mentally in order to further their agenda. And a lot of that, you guys, plays into our mental health system, plays into the decline of our actual mental health. Social media also. Social media helps that shit, because what social media does is it inflates expectations, and it really does make a lot of people feel like failures. You know what I mean? especially like people who want to create content, and they think they got a little bit of a knack, and they put up some content and they get 2 or 3 likes, and no traction, despite trying and doing the exact same things as other creators and not being recognized for it. That takes its toll on people. It started to take its toll on me, and then I started realizing that motherfuckers on social media really ain't important. Social media really isn't important. What's important in my position, like me personally, I think I reach more people with my podcast than I do with my social platforms. It's just that simple. And the reason why is because people on my podcast, they're looking for these things. People on social platforms, they're just scrolling until they find something that they want to check out or that they want to see or that they're interested in. People seek out podcasts for particular reasons. Now, this podcast might get a lot of traction because of the subject matter. And if it does, cool. But if it doesn't, I get it. I understand. But if it does, the one thing that I want is for it to help people. That's the one thing I want. And I feel that my social media platform, anytime that I tried to make content that helped people, that my content was being suppressed, which also takes its toll on, your mental state of mind. So it's just one thing that contributes, another straw that contributes to the decline of men's mental health. Listen, fellas, your mind was not built to carry everything, not all the stress, all the trauma, it wasn't built that way. It's all right for you to unplug. It's all right for you to sit there and cry. It's all right for you to let it out, man. And fuck anybody who tells you that it's not okay. And anybody who anybody who calls you a pussy in the future, ask them about their life. Ask them how good your life is. When is the last time you let out all the stress and trauma that you're carrying behind? And put down that fucking facade, that tough guy, machismo, fucking alpha male bullshit. Put that shit down, y'all. Because that shit right there it's a contributor also. Put it down. So, if this resonated with you, y'all, sit with it, man. Sit with it for a few minutes. Talk about it. Take a little bit of action. Healing is not soft, okay? Healing yourself is not soft. It's revolutionary. That's what we need. We need healing. We need healing. And you don't have to do everything today. You don't have to jump out and try to fucking solve your whole today. It takes time. But just know this. You are not alone. Okay? And just so you know, there are plenty of hotlines out there. The Crisis and Suicide Prevention Hotline at 988 Suicide Crisis and Prevention Hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the United States via call or text. Or you can chat at 988, or you can go 988lifeline.org. It's free. It's confidential support for emotional distress, suicidal thoughts, and more. Specialized in routing is available for veterans, Spanish speakers, LGBTQ, members of that community, members of the Black community, the Native American community, postpartum individuals, suicide attempt survivors, and etc. Crisis text line. Text HOME to 741-741 for free confidential texting support in the United States and in Canada. Over 9 million conversations to date. National Mental Health Support Agencies, the SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, offers resources like findtreatmentnow.gov, 988. Disaster Distress Helpline is 1-800-985-5990, and directories of community and peer support services. There's more. The NIMH, National Institute of Mental Health, provides free brochures, treatment treatment locator guidance and information about clinical trials. CDC Suicide Prevention Center emphasizes risk factors among men and directs you to 988. Men-focused mental health programs and apps. Mentaltherapy.org, a humor-driven, stigma-busting online campaign featuring Dr. Rich Mahogany, offers mental health quizzes, DIY tools, referrals, and other peer support. Men's Minds Matter, a UK-based charity organization offering self-help strategies for men, covering anxiety, depression, anger in the workplace, workplace stress, and suicidal thoughts. It provides tips and free downloadable booklet. Helpful, low-cost, and free apps. Mini 988 SAMHSA and NIMH sites linked to tools such as mood trackers, breathing exercises, and meditation apps, e.g. mindfulness and calm. Also, CBT-based apps like Mood Kit and Wobot often have free tiers on their sliding scale options. So it's out there, y'all. It's out there. Okay, so there's no excuse. There's plenty of help. Go out there and get it. You deserve it. You deserve to be here with the rest of us. You deserve to be present. You people want to see you. I want to see you. I want to see you stand up. I want to see everybody out there who is suffering. I want to see you stand up to this. I want to see you stand up and beat it because you can. I'm living proof. You know, I will always have major depressive disorder. It is a condition that does not go away, but it does not have to define me, and it does not have to defeat me. You understand? So I think it's going to do it for this week's episode of the Deron Harris Podcast, man. I love y'all, man. To all my fellas out there, like black guys, white guys, you know, Asian guys, everybody, fellas, I love y'all, man. You know what I'm saying? I love y'all, man. And now you need to turn around in the mirror and you need to tell yourself the same thing. I love you, man. You matter because you do. I want to thank my parents for giving me this mouthpiece. And I also want to thank them for giving me these mental issues so that I can come and talk to people about it. I can try my best to help people through it. I want to thank my wife for being the absolute biggest fan I have in the world and my biggest supporter. She is my rock. And, you know, I don't know how she does it because I'm a lot of times I'm a fucking basket case. But she takes it in stride, and, you know, and I will say sometimes she doesn't always know what to say, but she is always there, and she is always willing to help me no matter what I am going through. She, like I said, she may not always know what to say, but she always knows what to do. I want to thank my best friend, Jesse Gandel, for also advocating and helping me through hard times in my life. If it had not been for this man, there have been plenty of times I probably would have ended up in a morgue someplace or someplace in a ditch somewhere. And I want to thank you, man. I do appreciate you, and I love you with every ounce of strength in my body, bro. I want to thank Gentry Thomas for the platform to bring you guys my podcast so that maybe you will get some help. G, I really thank you, man. I appreciate you, and I thank you for all the other opportunities that you've given me, man. I do appreciate it, and hopefully I'm doing a good job and I ain't letting you down. And last but not least, I want to thank everybody out there listening to my voice. I want to thank all the listeners for listening to the Deron Harris Podcast. And I want you to know that I am sincere when I say I want to help everybody. I do, and I talk a lot of shit, you know, and I am upset a lot. I talk a lot about politics, and the reason I talk is because I care, because I know that people are suffering and people are hurting. You know, as we watch our entire country being pulled apart by the current administration, I can't help but realize, you know, and it's not just thinking, I can't help but actually realize that people are out there suffering. And if you think these ICE agents aren't suffering, if you think the National Guard troops, you think they're not suffering, they are. They are. They're just in a position that they don't know what they should do. Some of them, make no mistake about it, some of them are gung-ho about it. But there are a lot of people out there that are just doing their job. They're trying to follow orders. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to save their families. They're trying to help their families. They're trying to feed their families on both sides. So in this time, you know, if there are any ICE agents listening, this is the time to have some compassion, to exercise compassion. And if there are any Marines or any National Guard members listening, you know that you do have a choice, because your oath is to protect the Constitution, okay? And I know that a lot of you are wrestling with this, and I know a lot of it is taking the mental, it's taking its toll on you mentally, because you don't know whether or not you should continue to support your country or you should support humanity. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. It's always better to support humanity, because I'm going to tell you one thing. God doesn't give a fuck about a country. God doesn't care about the United States. He doesn't care about Israel. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. The only people who do are the people who are causing these things to happen, who are making these things happen. God cares about people, okay? God cares about how you treat people. God cares about how people are treated. God does care about you and your mental health. And if you think that he doesn't, you're sadly mistaken. All right, y'all. So until next week, and like I said, next week I will again be talking about men's mental health. And next week, I think what I will be talking about is caregivers, people like my wife and my mom, and people who stand up and advocate for people with mental disabilities. So I'll be talking about that next week. So until next week, y'all, keep your head up, man. The sun is always, right now, the sun is out shining, even when it's not. Remember that. All right? See ya.
You've been listening to the Deron Harris Podcast. Subscribe to the show, give a good rating, and everything you need to know is at DeronHarris.com.